Kifian culture. Kifian culture is a prehistoric industry or domain that existed between approximately 8000 BC and 6000 BC in the Sahara Desert during the African human period referred to as the Neolithic subpluvial. Human remains from this culture were found in 2000 AD at a site known as Gabaro, located in Niger in the Tenera Desert. The site is known as the largest and earliest burial place of Stone Age people in the Sahara Desert. The Kifians were skilled hunters. Bones of many large savanna animals that were discovered in the same area suggest that they lived on the shores of a lake that was present during the Holocene wet phase, a period when the Sahara Desert was verdant and wet. The Kifian people were tall, standing over 6 feet in height. A craniometric analysis by Sereno et al. Suggests that this early Holocene population was related to the late Pleistocene Iberomaurusians and early Holocene Capsians of the Maghreb, as well as mid-Holocene Mecta groups. Based on dental evidence, Joel D. Irish of Liverpool John Moores University suggests sub-Saharan West African affinities for the Kifians, in turn suggesting that the common ancestors of West African and proto-Bantu peoples may have originated in the southwestern region of the Sahara amid the Kifian period at Gabaro, and may have migrated southward from the Sahara into various parts of West Africa. Examples: Benin, Cameroon, Ghana, Nigeria, Togo, as a result of desertification in 7000 BC. From parts of southeast Nigeria and Cameroon, agricultural proto-Bantu peoples began to migrate, and amid migration, diverged into East Bantu peoples, the example Democratic Republic of Congo, and West Bantu peoples, the example Congo, Gabon, between 2500 BC and 1200 BC. Kifians may have been Nilo-Saharan, 5, 6, 7, or Niger-Congo speakers. Traces of the Kifian culture do not exist after 6000 BC, as the Sahara went through a dry period for the next 1000 years. After this time, the Tenerian culture colonized the area. Ancient cemetery found in Green Sahara Desert. By Randolph E. Schmid, Associated Press. A tiny woman and 2 children were laid to rest on a bed of flowers 5,000 years ago in what is now the barren Sahara Desert. The slender arms of the youngsters were still extended. Paul Sereno of the University of Chicago and colleagues were searching for the remains of dinosaurs in the African country of Niger when they came across the startling find, detailed at a news conference Thursday at the National Geographic Society. Some 200 graves of humans were found during fieldwork at the site in 2005 and 2006, as well as remains of animals, large fish and crocodiles. Everywhere you turned, there were bones belonging to animals that don't live in the desert, said Sereno. I realized we were in the Green Sahara. The graveyard, uncovered by hot desert winds, is near what would have been a lake at the time people lived there. It's in a region called Gabaro, hidden away in Niger's forbidding Tenera Desert, known to Tuareg nomads as a desert within a desert. The human remains dated from 2 distinct populations that lived there during wet times, with a dry period in between. The first group, known as the Kifian, hunted wild animals and speared huge perch with harpoons. They colonized the region when the Sahara was at its wettest, between 10,000 and 8,000 years ago. The researchers said the Kifians were tall, sometimes reaching well over 6 feet, 1.83 meters. The second group lived in the region between 7,000 and 4,500 years ago. The Tenerians were smaller and had a mixed economy of hunting, fishing, and cattle herding. Their burials often included jewelry or ritual poses. For example, one girl had an upper arm bracelet carved from a hippo tusk. An adult Tenerian male was buried with his skull resting on part of a clay vessel. Another adult male was interred seated on the shell of a mud turtle. At first glance, it's hard to imagine 2 more biologically distinct groups of people burying their dead in the same place, it said team member Chris Stojanowski, a bioarchaeologist from Arizona State University. Stojanowski said ridges on the bone of one Kifian man show he had huge leg muscles, which suggests he was eating a lot of protein and had an active, strenuous lifestyle. The Kifian appear to have been fairly healthy. It would be difficult to grow a body that's tall and muscular without sufficient nutrition. On the other hand, the ridges on a Tenerian male were barely visible. This man's life was less rigorous, perhaps taking smaller fish and game with more advanced hunting technologies, Stojanowski said. Helene Juice, a zooarchaeologist from the Museum of Natural History in Vienna, reported that animal bones found in the area were from types common today in the Serengeti in Kenya, such as elephants, giraffes, hartebeests, and warthogs. While the Sahara is desert today, a small difference in Earth's orbit once brought seasonal monsoons further north, wetting the landscape with lakes with lush margins and drawing animals and people. The Tenerian culture is a prehistoric industry that existed between the 5th millennium BC and mid-3rd millennium BC. This spans the Neolithic subpluvial and later desiccation during the Middle Holocene. French archaeologist M. Regers first used the term Tenerian in 1934, with subsequent scholars producing a clearer definition. The missions Balayat to the Air Mountains, Air Massif, in northern Niger produced the clearest definition prior to J. Desmond Clark's expedition to Adrabus in early 1970, the results of which were published in November 2008. Human remains belonging to the Tenerian culture were first found at Adrabus in the Air Mountains. Other Tenerian specimens were also discovered at Gabaro, located in Niger in the Tenera Desert. This region was lush at the time, and Tenerians were specialized cattle herders who also occasionally fished and hunted. Gabaro was discovered in 2000 during an archaeological expedition led by Paul Sereno, which sought dinosaur remains. Two distinct prehistoric cultures were discovered at the site, the early Holocene Kifian culture and the Middle Holocene Tenerian culture. The Kifians were a prehistoric people who preceded the Tenerians and vanished approximately 8,000 years ago when the desert became very dry. The desiccation lasted until around 4600 BC, the period to when the earliest artifacts associated with the Tenerians have been dated. Some 200 skeletons have been discovered at Gabaro, Niger. The Tenerians were considerably shorter in height and less robust than the earlier peoples associated with Kifian culture. Craniometric analysis also indicates that they were osteologically distinct. The Kifian skulls are akin to those of the late Pleistocene Iberomaurusians, early Holocene Capsians, and mid-Holocene Mecta groups, whereas the Tenerian crania are more like those of Mediterranean groups. Graves show that the Tenerians observed spiritual traditions, thus they were buried with artifacts such as jewelry made of hippo tusks and clay pots. The most interesting find is a triple burial of an adult female and two children, dated to 5,300 years ago. The fossil has been estimated through their teeth as being 5 and 8 years old, hugging each other. Pollen residue indicates they were buried on a bed of flowers. The three are assumed to have died within 24 hours of each other, but as their skeletons hold no apparent trauma, they did not die violently, and they have been buried so elaborately, unlikely if they had died of a plague. The cause of their deaths is a mystery. Tenerians may have been Nilo-Saharan speakers who descended from the Kifians, or been Proto-Afroasiatic speakers. Approximately 4,500 years ago, the region became dry again. The Tenerian culture vanished, with its Nilo-Saharan Kifians, 5, makers possibly seeking new pasturage elsewhere.